Our guest today is Mr. John Mackay, geologist from Australia. He's the International Director of Creation Research. Welcome, Mr. Mackay.
Thank you, Romulus.
I have a book with me today, which I'm going to show it to you in a couple of seconds. But before getting into the subject, I would like to ask you the following. In previous programs, we've been talking about how different ethnical groups, they have some sort of creation story. Okay, if this is true, can we maybe talk about the fact that their God, okay, might be the same for all, and let's say Allah this way can be the creator God of Christianity? Is it such a thing possible?
Well, at a superficial level, it sounds right. So when God, I mean, so far, is he Allah? Who is he, right? So by the time you get from the Old Testament through to the New Testament, you begin to get your eyes opened a little bit more. So would you go to John chapter 1, please? And I'll be honest with you, the first time I preached from John chapter 1 in a Christian church, a Baptist church, I got myself into trouble. But you read the verses first and it'll soon become apparent why.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of man. And the life shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not.
Okay, now Mr. Theologian.
Yes, sir.
Who is John's Gospel actually about?
About Christ.
About Christ.
Yes.
So by the time you get to verse 14 of John's Gospel, chapter 1, it tells us what?
And the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld His glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth.
Okay, so beyond a shadow of a doubt, when you're reading John's Gospel,
yes,
it's made very clear that this person referred to in John 1 happens to be the person who became Jesus Christ in the flesh, correct? So that in the beginning was the Word.
Exactly.
And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And then later on, this Word became flesh. So God became a man. So beyond a shadow of a doubt, John's Gospel is about a God who became a man. More than that, it's about the God who became the man, Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
And you ask, which God became the man? Good question. Is this Allah? Who is it?
That's my question.
Well, number one, we can rule out this being Allah. Because you see, the Quran tells you nobody can ever see Allah. Not even Muhammad will know Allah, right? Allah does not make himself present in the flesh. So the one thing you can do using your Quran, whoever John 1 is talking about, is not Allah. But the interesting thing is, it is the Creator. Would you read verse 3 of John chapter 1 for us?
All things were made by Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made.
Okay, John's Gospel is telling you that this Word was in the beginning.
Yes.
This Word was with God.
Yes.
This Word was God. And this Word made everything.
Everything.
Okay, now in case you're wondering why Jesus is often called the Word, go back to Genesis chapter 1. You see, if you read through your Quran, you'll find it interesting that it says, listen to the words of Jesus. Respect the words of Jesus.
Yes, I know. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night, and the evening and the morning were the first day.
Okay, let me say the first bit in another language. Beresheth bara Elohim. In the beginning,
God.
Okay, so the word for God there is Elohim.
Yes.
Okay, now this God, obviously words like El and Al are related words in language, but it doesn't make them the same. In fact, if you want to know who this God in Genesis 1 is, remember He said, let there be
light.
So He spoke.
Exactly.
Okay, now you have Elohim, God, making the heavens and the earth and the seas and everything in them. In Exodus, you have this same God giving to Moses the 10 Commandments, one of which says, I am the God who made the heavens and the earth and the seas and everything that is in them. Right? And by the time you get to John, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and without him, the Word who is God, nothing was made. So beyond a shadow of a doubt, Genesis chapter 1, Exodus chapter 20, and John chapter 1 are talking about the same God. But by the time you get to John chapter 1, this God became flesh and he lived among men. Okay, you've got a little knowledge of the Quran. Did Allah ever do that? He had prophets like Muhammad, they were men, but Allah himself never came down to this planet as a human being. So therefore, John chapter 1 is not about Allah. But John chapter 1 is about the one who created the universe, the heavens and the earth, because as verse 3 says, without him nothing was made that was made. Okay, now go back to Genesis 1 again in your mind. You don't need to turn back there, because it said, and God said, let there be
light.
How did he make light?
He just commanded it into existence.
He spoke.
Yeah.
When you speak, you use what?
Words.
Ah. In the beginning was the
Word.
And the Word was
God.
And the Word was let there be light. You see, that's how he gets his name. Because when he speaks, things happen. Now you and I might have different question. Does Allah have a son?
Oh no, by all means he doesn't.
No, you can read it in the Quran,
yes.
right? He has no son.
No sons.
Nothing is begotten from Allah.
No.
And yet John 3:16, the key verse of many evangelical Christians who would even dare to think that God and Allah could be the same, is that the only begotten Son of God. Okay, so we can qualify from our Quran and from our Bible that they are not talking about the same person.
No, we're not.
Okay, so the niceness, I mean, you want to be nice to Muslims and you'd love them to be nice to you. The fact is, any statement that says Allah is the same God as the God of Genesis is simply not correct. It's not correct from the Quran and it's not correct from the Bible. Now, if you tell that to someone who's very firmly convinced Islamic, they may get mad at you. But you have to love them enough to be willing to risk their wrath in order for you to be able to tell them the truth, for one very good reason.